all it's going to take is a little bit of momentum to start off the season.
And seems like we have Owen playing that classic Dragapult Dusknoir deck against Jose with the very hot Conkeldurr the Dunsparce deck, which did high numbers last weekend at Frankfurt. I'm sure Owen was there hearing all about Conkeldurr and how they did pretty well. One of them got top 16. They faced off. We had a Conkeldurr mirror on stream, I believe, in round 6 or something like that. So Conkeldurr seems to be the hottest new toy for many players, and it's a pretty cool deck. It's a pretty fun deck as well. And I think we're about to see if it can go toe-to-toe against one of the top decks in the metagame, Dragapult Dusknoir.
And this the Dunsparce idea, players have really experimented with this time and time and time again as a draw engine. I remember seeing it in like Archaladon, for example. Players were trying it in Roaring Moon, of course, and it's only a matter of time before somebody finds a home for this proper draw engine, and maybe this is the way it's going to go going forward. A nice single prize deck to kind of foil your opponent and get some early aggressive hits. We've talked constantly about how, do you want to be aggressive, do you want to be defensive, and Conkeldurr is the definition of aggression.
Yeah, being able to attack for free if it has a status condition on it, and therefore that's where the Brute Bonnet comes in now. If Owen didn't know what he was up against, just by seeing the Dunsparce, you could probably narrow it down to Conkeldurr. There's not a lot of decks playing the Dunsparce engine at the moment, or at least not meta viable ones, and that runaway draw will be very, very clutch, and it's definitely the best single prize engine to help you reach for your resources. Now, seeing the Brute Bonnet already in the discard pile does mean that I'm sure Owen, with the caliber of player that he is, he will be able to know exactly what he's up against now.
And if you can prepare, you know what your opponent's up to, that is the first step. Having a decent read on the metagame, having the ability to quickly identify what your opponent is doing, because this lets you figure out what you're going to set up, what immediately you're going to lean into. Jose just goes for Jet Energy, puts Fan Rotom in the active, doesn't want any of these Dunsparces to be in danger, and now is beginning to threaten potentially just a quick assault landing if the Stadium comes into play.
Yeah, that Stadium being so clutch, but it is part of Jose's strategy. He definitely wants to have that in play. Does play 3 copies total, does have 2 Gravity Mountain and 1 Town Store to help him find those ancient booster energy capsules a lot easier. And now, over on Owen's side, we are going to see him very thoroughly check the prices. I'm sure he wishes he had the price cam that we have right now. He's going to see the Hawlucha is not available, which can be pretty clutch to bring that HP of Dunsparce into 60 with that flying entry, and a Dracloak not available. The Blood Moon probably not going to be a factor. So yeah, we'll see how Owen handles this.
After the Buddy Poffin finds Dreepy and Badoo, Owen most likely just going to try to set up Itchy Pollen, try to slow this deck down. Once you've got the Dunsparces in play, hopefully Jose has the Dunsparce already in hand. I didn't get a chance to see whether or not that's the case, but typically if you can't Ultra Ball or something to find the evolution Pokemon, it can be pretty awkward. And Owen is going to need some time to set up, because when you are playing a 2-prize deck into a single prize deck, you need to make sure you have multiple attackers set up and ready to go and take down this game.
We are seeing that Owen is not taking a page from the Tord Reklev playbook, and he's actually not playing any rare candies. He's going for the more traditional, slow but steady approach. Gonna have to go through the Dracloaks and get that Recon Directive, of course, which is pretty powerful, into a lot of resources, as we see the Latias EX get into play to be able to start the Itchy Pollen lock.
With Nest Ball, brings this down. Skyliner allows you to retreat your basic Pokemon for free, and now Jamming Tower entering play is not trying to deny anything towards the Fan Rotom, just wants to get this down. And most likely going to retreat into Badoo here, of course, start setting up Itchy Pollen. It is a little spooky because of just one Dreepy in play, but finds an attachment for turn. And after the research, no other basics to be put down.
Now, this Jamming Tower getting put into play immediately is actually a pretty big deal, because that's one less Stadium Owen will have to counteract the 2 Gravity Mountains that Jose has, which will bring Dragapult EX's HP to a much more achievable number and will allow Conkeldurr to threaten a one-hit knockout onto it with the poison damage bonus.
So Timber and Conkeldurr and Boss's orders drawn off of the Dunsparce, so its runaway draw is going to shuffle those back into the deck. Jose signaling that he will go back in. No Timber were set up on turn 1, of course, so still a little bit behind of evolving into the main attacker for this list. But, you know, Assault Landing is still here to take a prize card, and Owen is more than happy to see Badoo go down and not this Dreepy.
Yeah, especially there's no Ultra Ball allowed to be played. We are under Itchy Pollen Lock, which is very impactful because that doesn't allow Jose to be able to play these item cards to be able to find the Timbers, right? Last turn, he didn't find a Timber. That's the main Pokemon he needs. And with only one copy of Girder, the heavy reliance on Rare Candy will mean that Itchy Pollen is just gonna wreck really, really bad any attempt by Jose to do pretty much anything.
Now, Boss's orders, of course, folks, was drawn off of the Dunsparce. Can just boss up Dreepy, use that Assault Landing, take the knockout. But is that really the way you want to play this? Because then Badoo is just going to keep you under item lock and you can't get set up. Is it better to keep delaying your opponent or get this Badoo out of the way and try to focus on your own setup? Owen has the Night Stretcher, instead goes for Dusclops, has second Badoo. This is also something that, again, a straight Pult wants to play a little bit more of, a more defensive line with 2 Badoo. For a long time, we only saw just 1 copy and attachment for turn Luminous Energy. Dreepy is ready to go. Needs to start evolving, however.
Yeah, Owen needs to find a Dracloak, needs to use this research, which will leave him with no more stadium counters. The second Jamming Tower has hit the discard pile, and therefore, now he has no way to counteract the Gravity Mountain. Jose's setup is not really threatening much next turn, especially because we know there's going to be an Itchy Pollen, therefore there's no possibility to go Rare Candy into Girder, and we can't Ultra Ball, Rare Candy into Conkeldurr, and we cannot Rare Candy into Girder, so needs to have it raw in the hand, which I think it is in there. But yeah, I mean, it's just that Itchy Pollen is just so tough to get past when you're relying on 1 Stage 1 Pokemon and 4 Rare Candy.
This is the first hurdle, right, of going against the Dragapult matchup, is can you deal with Badoo? Then the next one is can you deal with Dusknoir? Can you deal with Phantom Dive? Can you deal with Monkey Dory? And unfortunately, if you get off to a slower start like Jose did, had the great setup with Fan Rotom, getting the Dunsparce, getting the draw engine established, but no threats yet. The Dracloak is found. This will be the first recon directive. You look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one to go to the hand, the other one goes to the bottom of the deck, finds a second Dreepy to put on the bench. Owen Dalgard's setup gets stronger and stronger as this turn goes on.
Yeah, finally found that second Dreepy because he wasn't able to find any sort of body puffin yet. Now, this 10 damage on the Timber is actually pretty significant, putting it in range of the 6 damage counters from Phantom Dive if Jose is able to retreat it, and does play a few copies of Jet Energy, right? There's already 1 in play, but does have 2 others, which could allow him to move the Timber. But realistically, this Itchy Pollen Lock is just too strong at the moment. The Dunsparce is good, but it helps you draw cards. It's not going to be an attacker. Fan Rotom is good early on. It might even get another knockout right now, but realistically, this is just really rough as we see the Dunsparce using that Find a Friend ability attack, to find the Dunsparce, I'm going to imagine.
Yeah, the Find a Friend lets you search your deck for any Pokemon. Typically, these attacks are like, you know, Call for Family, where you're only finding basics. This one, you can get any Pokemon, put it in the hand, and then this throws the ball back to Owen's court, right? Am I going to Iono you? Just get rid of this to Dunsparce? Do I think you have threat potential? Now, with Dracloak on bench, with 2 energies attached, Badoo has free retreat, and 1 damage counter on the Timber, the Phantom Dive is looming large over Jose's board.
Yep, and Owen already has a Dragapult EX in hand, has a Boss's orders as well in case he needed to chase something else down. As we see, the Recon Directive does find Shaman or the Neo Opera Energy, that Shaman technology that we were talking about so much. Seems like Owen is respecting the fact that Terrabox had so much success last weekend and chose to play it this time around. Now, Owen has such a good hand here right now. Has the Hilda to find another Dracloak, has the energy attachment, has the Dragapult already. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be left in the field with no Timbers in play whatsoever. However, Jose will finally be able to play his item cards freely.
And Hilda is just so beautiful for, again, just keeping up the pressure. Either setting up what you've already established, you need your energy, you need your evolution, or once you're already there, you're using it to grab your Dust Noirs, just a second energy to attach for turn. After grabbing the Neo Upper, I wonder if Owen is going to attach that to this Dracloak right now, or maybe hold on to it for a surprise factor a little bit later on.
And the fact that you can actually have that luxury, right? Do I want to attach the Neo Upper? Do I want to do it slow with your opponent applying no pressure with their setup just being so weak? And yeah, we see the Timber KO. So sure, go ahead and play any item cards you want because you're barely going to be able to have a Timber in play next turn anyways, with the threat of Dust Clubs, with the threat of a potential Dust Noir, and with those ever-looming Phantom Dive damage counters.
Jose's forced to get at least 2 Timber in play. And you're putting Timber on the bench. That means you have less room to bench Dunsparce to evolve and try to draw cards. Owen taking prize cards means that there's a much higher chance that Hawlucha is going to come through and establish that flying entry combination for Phantom Dive to take the Timbers down. So after drawing 3, the runaway draw shuffles the Dunsparce back into the deck. And now Jose, before committing to that, is just going to figure out what's next to be played. Colress's Tenacity to find a special energy and a stadium card. We know that Gravity Mountain is in here. It does reduce the HP of Stage 2 Pokemon by 30?
Yep.
20.
By 30.
30, right.
However, right now the priority is, of course, setting up. So we need to be able to find those Timbers. We need to be able to draw extra cards, and that's where the enriching energy comes in. When you attach it, you draw 4 cards off the top. So a Hilda essentially can get you at the Dunsparce and this enriching energy, which is plus 7 cards each turn. But so you can see the setup has been so weak. There's nothing really here at the moment, and we need at the very least 2 Timbers right now to hope to be able to survive. And because the Colress has been played, Owen knows his hand is not changing. And if there's a boss's orders there, Adam, I don't think we're going to see any Timbers survive the next turn.
Yeah, the Artisan was a great grab off of Colress, but that's only going to get you 1 Pokemon. Jose's got to dig a little bit deeper. I'm hoping to see a Nest Ball or something. Brute Bonnet enters play.
We have an Ultra Ball, so that could get us the second Timber. I would like to see the draw first with the enriching energy. That way, if you get a Timber, you can Ultra Ball for something else. Like right now, thinning is very important in your deck, but right now you want a lot of basic Pokemon in your deck so that you can draw them with that enriching energy, and then afterwards find whatever piece you might be missing. We see Owen reading the girder.
And I understand the hesitation here. You really want to try to save the enriching energy for Dunsparce because it also shuffles its energy back into the deck as the Dunsparce, and then you can keep recycling that enriching energy and enhancing your draw even further. So Jose Ultra Balls for Dunsparce to attach enriching energy to it instead.
And that sounds wonderful, right? Like, that's the ideal. But sometimes you just can't afford to do the ideal, and you need to improvise on the spot. And, I mean, we're getting more cards, right? We have a Great Ball. We have another Ultra Ball. But realistically, this is what you want your turn 1 to be looking like, not when you're staring at an already powered up Dragapult and a Dust Clubs and then almost already powered up second Dragapult in play.
Now, there's 2 Night Stretchers down for Owen. I don't know if there's a Dust Noir in the discard pile just yet. I don't believe so. But if Owen is able to just find the Dust Noir with an Ultra Ball or maybe just off of Recon Directive, you know, that's going to be another just explosion to wipe Jose's board. This is definitely Owen's game to lose. He just has to step up and collect the victory here in game number 1.
Yeah, realistically, Owen probably can't win next turn, but there's not going to be any Timbers on the field for Jose. Owen is going to be down to 2 prize cards. There's going to be damage counters on the field as well. And yeah, it's just going to be very rough to be able to set up. And I have to wonder, like, Conkeldurr did pretty well last weekend, is sitting at 4-0 here right now. But surely they must have a better game plan against Body to be able to succeed, right? A Body after Body just denying your forward candies. How do you overcome that? I'm not quite seeing a good way to do so.
If you've got Fan Rotom, maybe double Fan Rotom or something, you just keep hitting the Badoo, taking the first 2 or 3 prizes. If you have a better setup behind the item lock, I think it's fine, because the Dunsparces showed up beautifully in the early game. It was the lack of Timber, really. If there was a couple Timber in play, maybe the item lock wouldn't have been as devastating.
Yeah, especially because Jose was able to find that girder early on, right? So that would have been pretty helpful. But yeah, the lack of Body Puffin, the lack of access to Timber is definitely hurtful. And now we are seeing Owen go full out with the Dust Clubs and that second Dust Gold to make sure that he has those extra damage counters and make sure that there is never a Timber or a lack of damage to help Phantom Dive to just clear out the board at any given moment, as we see that Boss's Orders get played.
Brutal. Also has Ultra Ball in hand. If there's 2 better discards to have, just go ahead and deal the 50 with the Dusclops.
Yep.
And take out both Timbers once again.
Yeah, I mean, I have to wonder, do you just keep all the resources? You don't even need to attach an energy. You can't bench an Dreepy. You don't really have to. You could just establish the second Dragapult here, but you value the Recon Directive, especially now that you're going down to 2 prizes. Your opponent could Iono, and maybe that would hurt a little bit. So I do like keeping that Dracloak as a Dracloak, especially because the active is not really threatened when there's no possibility of a Conkeldurr showing up.
If you are playing a deck like this where your game plan is very telegraphed, Dragapult excels at dismantling these kinds of plays because they lean into Badoo when they need to slow you down. They can use Phantom Dive in combination with Hawlucha, Countercatcher, Boss's Orders, and Cursed Blast to make sure you are not getting set up. That's 2 more prizes for Owen, and then the leftover energy going over to Fan Rotom.
And I mean, this is where we just had a new rule change for this season, that +1 turn, right? If Jose wants any hope of winning this round, like, you have no game plan here. You have no attacker, your main Pokemon, you threaten 70 damage, maybe 80 with the poison, with these 2 on the bench. You are not winning the game with that, so we really should be starting game 2 right now.
Yeah, just go ahead and concede, probably even on the turn prior to this.
Absolutely.
I thought it was perfectly acceptable to just scoop it up and try to get a more aggressive start, a more stable start. And I think that that's probably what the point of this deck is, certainly, and what Jose has been able to do consistently, being 4-0 at this part in the tournament.
Yeah, and then, like, you're going to see a lot of players have a hard time adapting to less turns after time is called, right? So the way you can have some sort of control over that is knowing when to concede. Your opponent is 1 attack away from winning the game. You have no copies of your main attacker down. Pack it up, let's go to the next game, and give yourself a better chance. Give yourself a chance at having a better start, getting those Timbers out early, hopefully evolving before the HE Pollen or through the HE Pollen, dealing with the HE Pollen quick enough to where you can sustain your deck. Yes, we are doing a lot of actions, but none of them are getting us closer to winning.
And with only 2 prize cards remaining, Jose, just drew Ursaluna there. That would be a great way to close out a game if this were a bit more even. But Fan Rotom comes back into the active after all, just trying to deal some chip damage to this Dragapult EX. And all it's going to take is for Owen to have 1 more gusting effect. Let me double check these lists. Already used 2 Boss's Orders.
1 more gusting effect, 1 Night Stretcher for a Dust Clubs.
Oh, that's true as well.
Onto the bench as well. Owen just has so many options to win this game. And, I mean, sure, Countercatcher is not live because you're ahead and you're completely fine. You have 4 Night Stretcher axes. If you've been sort of studying the metagame and you haven't seen a rare candy now, you know you're up against the 4 Night Stretcher Dragapult Dusknoir build. And sure, Gravity Mountain comes into play. Now that Dragapult has 290 HP instead of 320. You're nowhere near close to getting a knockout, and Owen pretty much has game on board. Oh, okay, we have the Blood Moon, sure.
Yeah, Blood Moon, Jet Energy takes a knockout, and Owen had already kept the Dragapult EX in the hand. Neo Upper set up on the second Dracloak here, ready to take over.
Okay, that's pretty good. Jose puts himself down to 2 prize cards. That will certainly help his case. However, Owen still just needs a copy of Dust Clubs and a copy of Dragapult, and we are seeing that Ultra Ball probably for the Dust Clubs to seal this. Owen doesn't need to KO the Blood Moon, he just needs to KO these two Pokemon with the residual damage from Phantom Dive. There it is. You're going to see the Curse Blast, 5 damage counters onto the Dunsparce, Phantom Dive, 2 damage to the Dunsparce, 1 to the Fanrotom, and that's going to be game number 1.
Dragapult loving to take multiple prize cards is its current claim to fame. Players have really leaned into this style of play, and just the fact that you can set up these checkmate scenarios is what makes the deck so attractive and what brings it consistently to the tops of these tournaments to go toe-to-toe with Gardevoir when the time is right.
Yep, pretty decisive win right there, and I think it shows an inherent weakness of Conkeldurr, right? Conkeldurr might be a fantastic single prize Pokemon that does really well into these multiple prize Pokemon, but as we saw in this game 1, that Itchy Pollen is just too difficult to deal with. Even if you KO the Bodyu on the first turn with your Fanrotom immediately, they keep coming back and they're gonna stop your candies, and that's just gonna delay your whole game plan until it's a little too late.
Yeah, and maybe that turn where Jose maybe could have bossed up Dreepy rather than taking down the Badoo could have put him on a different line there. Perhaps he was expecting there to be only one Badoo. Owen Dalgard is on 2 copies, but of course there's 4 Night Stretchers in this deck as well, so even when you knock out the Badoo, it's a very high chance it's going to come back regardless.
Yeah, so I think if you, like, historically, Dragapult has been playing 2 Badoo since rotation and even prior, right? So I think assuming anything less than 2 would definitely be very hopeful at the very least.
That's valid. That's valid.
Therefore, yeah, you have to account for double Badoo. You have to, I mean, just based on deck building, I feel like only having 1 Girder in these sort of deck feels like a mistake, because how are you getting past Badoo? And if you are aiming to win any of these regionals, you know you're going to have to play against Dragapult at some point. You need to have at least some sort of game plan, right? Give yourself some sort of chance. I think 1 copy of your Stage 1 Pokemon is not really it.
A lot of decks that are relying on evolving are trying to work in things like Brock Scouting or Jacques or something to get around that item lock and still find their pieces and slowly evolve up their Pokemon if that's the case. Because if your opponent is using Badoo to item lock you, you know that they are also taking a pretty slow-ish start in the early game, and it might give you that extra time. But we're going to game number 2. Jose Ordaz is 4-0, and this does give me a lot of hope for this archetype. I want Conkeldurr to surprise me, Pablo.
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 jobs as Conkeldurr: dodge Badoo and dodge Gardevoir. You manage both of those, you're probably golden. You're a very powerful single prize Stage 2 Pokemon that can 1 KO anything it goes up against, even the Dragapult. But by the time you get to that Dragapult, it might be a little too late for the Conkeldurr, as we saw in game 1. But let's see what game 2 has in store for us. Their Badoo is never guaranteed, right, at any given moment. You also have the tools to deal with it, with the poison, with the Fanrotom, so it's not like all hope is lost. Jose has definitely tested against this deck, I'm sure, so he must have a way around this.
And as we get into the first game, Owen just starting off with a Dreepy and active, immediately goes for Nest Ball to look for another basic Pokemon. Going to quickly read the deck, see what is missing, see what's in the prizes, of course. We know that Shaman is part of this deck list, not good for this particular matchup, but it's great to see that tech and maybe keep it in mind going forward in the tournament. We've got a full Dusknoir line in the prizes, along with Latias EX. Now, what's great about Latias EX in this matchup is it lets you preserve your energies when you're trying to pivot around and get certain things out of the active. So Owen is going to maybe be down 1 energy attachment potentially on this Dreepy when he needs to get it out of this active spot.
Yeah, that Latias is actually a pretty significant prizing. The full Dusknoir line is also impactful, especially mostly the fact that you cannot have 2 Duskull down to use like back-to-back Curse Blasts on the same turn. As long as you have access to 1 Curse Blast, I think you're probably fine, unless your opponent has all 4 Timbers down in the first turn of the game. I think it's probably manageable, and there's also a Lucha available, which plays really well into those 70 HP Pokemon. But yeah, the Latias will pretty much force Owen, if he wants to have an Itchy Pollen lock, to either be a lot more passive with his energy attachments, or rather not have as much wiggle room with his energy attachments, and put a lot of pressure on him finding that new upper when he wants to break that lock and start being aggressive and applying pressure.
That's very important to note. And Jose starting with Brute Bonnet in the active spot. This thing has a massive retreat cost. However, as we saw in game number 1, Jose has 3 copies of Jet Energy. Hopefully this thing won't be stranded too long, because this would be the other side of the coin if Jose got the best setup with Timbers and everything in the back line, but just was struggling to get Brute Bonnet out of the active spot.
Yeah, that's what the Jet Energies are there for, but they're not infinite and they're not exactly easy to find. However, that Colress Tenacity is actually insane. On this turn 1, we'll be able to find Artisan, to find Fan Rotom, to find the Dunsparce crew, and we'll be able to grab that Jet Energy to take this first knockout onto the Dreepia. Now, Owen's hand, or Owen's start rather, was not as great, and I think he has 3 copies of Iono in his starting hand, so he's probably going to play one. I don't think you can afford to research 3 Ionos on your first turn, if he even has a research. But then those 6 cards, a lot of the game is going to be relying on those 6 cards.
And with this first Dreepy going down, it means the second Dreepy is forced into the active spot. So it's the same conundrum over again for Owen, trying to get the Dreepy out of the active spot, having to go down an energy attachment in order to do so. I remember in the earlier days of Dragapult, right, you know, you're running things like Rescue Board.
Yep, seems like Jose's getting ahead. You can't search for a Pokemon and an energy. It's a stadium and energy. The stadium gets played. Now we can search for the Fan Rotom. So, I mean, this is normal, right? A lot of us take a few shortcuts in order to speed things up, and there was nothing illegal about it. He was just thinking 3 steps ahead, but hadn't done that first step initially. But now we're seeing everything play out. We do see the Enriching Energy over the Jet Energy, so I wonder if there's already a Jet Energy in hand, or if Jose's just really trying to prioritize the draw in order to try to find Timbers. But yeah, I really would have... Oh, he has plenty of energy in his hand. Never mind.
Okay,
He has all the energy.
So Jet Energy is there for Fan Rotom. Jose gets to have his cake and eat it too. The Enriching Energy is going to be beautiful to be attached to the next to Dunsparce. Unfortunately, as you already talked about, Pablo, Owen is going to be forced basically to play Iono next turn after this knockout. Maybe finds Pheasantipity, gets a little bit more draw, keeps back into this game because... I know you've already seen it, folks. There's 1 Timber.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that we have bench space for.
It's already an improvement from previous game, right? Previous game, turn 1, we didn't see any Timber. Now we are seeing 1. So we're getting closer to where we need to be. And now our setup is much stronger. Owen's setup is also much weaker. And you will be ahead in the prize cards. If your opponent wants to Ichi Pollen, they will not be able to do it through Latias. Jose doesn't know this, but Owen does. So there's going to be a lot of pressure mounting on his energy. So a lot will be happening at this point. And the game looking a lot better for Jose right off the bat.
So Dreepy comes back from the discard pile thanks to Night Stretcher, gets rebenched, and the active Dreepy evolves into Dracloak. Luminous Energy also being attached to this Pokemon for the turn. Remains to be seen if Owen wants to leave this in the active or most likely just to retreat it. It's going to go for Iono first, not using the Artisan quite yet. Wants to see what's drawn off the supporter and then use Artisan to search out the other basic that you might need.
Yeah, and I think another very useful tool or very useful use, if you will, of the Artisan is that Owen just placed 2 Ionos and a research at the very bottom of his deck. And therefore, he wants to shuffle those up to have a chance at finding them with those Recon Directives and with just off the card off the top, since his hand doesn't have any supporters right now. So pretty good strategy or pretty good sequencing by Owen. We're going to see that Recon Directive not offering much help, and I have to expect this Artisan will find us a body to try to slow down Jose just a little bit.
Yeah, especially after picking up the Counter Catcher from Recon Directive. Here finally comes Artisan. Badoo's picked up, and after the shuffle, once again, those amazing supporters are going to find their way back into the deck, have a slightly higher chance of getting those here in the mid-game where you need it, and this is the moment of truth. Will Badoo be able to hold back this Timber, all of these Dunsparces? Because I haven't seen what Jose's hand is looking like after that Iono.
I think he might have access to a couple of Dunsparce, so that's pretty good. The issue is going to come down to finding that 1 copy of Girder to get closer to the Conkeldurr. You do play Hilda, right? 4 copies of Hilda should be able to help you in that regard, and the copy of Girder didn't get prized, so if we can find a Hilda, we might actually be getting somewhere here, Adam.
And the sacrifice of the Luminous Energy is unfortunate, but you've got to get this Dracloak out of the active spot, of course. Badu goes for Itchy Pollen, and Owen Dalgard is hoping that this is just enough to delay with no rare candy and get a Dragapult down, maybe with Neo Upper next turn, and swing on this active Timber.
Yeah, that counter catcher on the Timber is actually pretty significant. Slows down the pressure on the Fan Rotom, and Owen doesn't know it, but Jose had a Jet Energy in his hand that got shuffled to the bottom of the deck, I believe. Now, this the Dunsparce will open up a bench space for Artisan to be utilized for a second copy of Timber, so that's also pretty significant. So a lot of synergy between Jose's cards in this turn right now, but it's all about the Girder at the very least, and also finding another Jet Energy to continue the pressure and bring this Timber, hopefully soon Girder, back into safety. But one copy of Jet Energy is prized, so
that no.
Oh, and there's one in the discard pile as well. We see the new feature here for the stream. We have one copy of Jet Energy prized, one copy in the discard pile, and one copy in play. So actually, we cannot move this Timber this turn.
It's going to be another attach and shuffle. Excuse me, the Dunsparce getting runaway draw back into the deck, has to evolve the active into Girder just to keep that down. Gets a little bit more of a boost in HP. It's up to 90, but this is still incredibly vulnerable to a Dragapult, of course.
Yeah, the key card being Hilda here. I think Owen, if he can find the new upper, then this game is going to go upside down really quickly. Now we're going to see the Colress Tenacity, and we're going to find that there's no more Jet Energy. I'm sure, well, I don't know how thoroughly Jose checked his prize cards, and I think based on the face he just made, I'm not sure he was aware that the last copy of Jet Energy was not available to him. So he's going to have to find that Jet Energy, the Enriching Energy, but will not be able to do his best possible play and bring that Girder back to safety on the bench.
Yeah, with the Brute Bonnet and the Girders, these things have big retreat costs, so it becomes very difficult to pivot around, and that's what the Jet Energy is for. Just picks up Town Store and Enriching Energy. Can draw 4 more cards this turn by attaching. It's already shuffled into the Dunsparce, but this is a truly unfortunate happenstance, right? Having that Jet Energy in the prizes. When you have such a powerful turn to have the stabilization of your evolution line of Timber and then Fan Rotom coming into the active spot to take another knockout. This is what I speculated could be a strong, fruitful line in game number 1, with Fan Rotom doing a lot of the dirty work for the early game. But now Girder staring down another potential turn of item lock, potentially a Dragapult EX with a Neo Upper to slam this thing back down into the discard pile.
See another Timber, and there we see the pass. So no pressure, body was not effectively dealt with. This gives Owen a little bit of wiggle room, perhaps, with the energy. We're going to see the Artisan get utilized, which Jose didn't counter last turn, so that Duskull getting into play. Owen looking a little bit more stable. This Recon Directive needs to be a very good one, though, because there's not a lot of help in Owen's hand. And if Jose is able to find a Conkeldurr and a Boss's Orders, then he could go after that Dracloak. So Owen not out of it yet, in a little bit of a dire spot. A lot relies on this Recon Directive.
2 cards to change his fate. Buddy Buddy Poffin and another Badu. Can keep the Poffin. You can just fill the bench with tons of Dreepies to make sure you're always going to have options for attackers. And it seems like Owen is going to have to give Jose another turn to apply some pressure.
Now, this is where hand reading comes into play, all right, in terms of skill. Owen knows that Jose plays Jet Energy. Owen knows that Jose's best play last turn was to use Jet Energy to deal with that body, apply pressure, and keep himself in the game, in the prize race, whilst evolving into a Girder. But Jose didn't do that last turn. So I would not be surprised to see Owen play another of those counter catchers or Boss's Orders if he has it, bring up either the Brute Bonnet or the Timber as well, and because you're denying rare candy, right, then your Dracloak is protected. So that would be a very clutch play to make here. I'm sure Owen sees it. He's eyeing up the counter catchers. I think he might be deciding between counter catcher or Boss's Orders, as he has both options right now. And there we have it. Yep.
Boss's orders, just use your supporter for turn right now while you kind of have it for free. You can save your items for down the road. I think that Owen, based on the board today, is expecting to still remain behind in prizes. Eventually, Jose will find a way to maybe get rid of this Badoo. And the chip damage, again, is so important, right, Pablo? Dealing just 10 damage to Timber, setting it from 70 to 60, means that the 6 damage counters from Phantom Dive will be able to knock it out, even if Jose does get it out of the active spot. And there is only 1 copy of Girder, folks. So this Timber doesn't have any chance of Rare Candy becoming a Conkeldurr.
Another peculiar decision here from Jose last turn was that he chose not to poison his Girder, right? I don't think the damage mattered too much, but there was no pressure on this body. Otherwise, this body would have 20 damage on it already, and it would be going down on the next turn, or would have at least forced Owen to bring up the other body or something, right? But there was no pressure from Jose from the poison package at the previous turn. Now we are seeing it, but it might be, it's definitely 1 turn too late. I think this is a clear showcase of Owen fully understanding his deck, but also understanding his opponent's deck, and then you have to assume that your opponent is always trying to make the right play, right? So because they didn't grab a Jet Energy, either they misplayed by not grabbing it, or it's just not available to them. They don't play it, or it's priced. So very good read on Owen's part, and I think that alone is just going to give him all the time in the world to set up and get to the Dragapult and take over this game at some point.
Yeah, even though Jose had the additional Timbers down, the lack of Rare Candy is still holding back the aggression. It doesn't matter if you've got your evolution line ticking up. If something is stranded in the active spot, using the Jet Energy early, one ending up in the discard pile, just so many factors coming together to open up holes in Jose's game plan that Owen is immediately clocking and immediately exploiting.
Yeah, Ichi-Pollen being incredibly strong, and also combining that with Owen's incredible reads, incredible understanding. I mean, Conkeldurr was not a deck before last weekend, I don't think. Like,
right.
It was a deck that was played, and it was like, haha, funny concept because you get to attack for free, right? Last weekend, it proved that maybe there's more to it, okay? Right now, we are seeing one of the major weaknesses, the item lock. And being weak to item lock when one of the major players in the format has 2 copies of Bodies every single time in their deck, puts a little question mark on my mind in terms of, can Conkeldurr actually compete with the top threats of the metagame?
Yeah, maybe this is just a bad beat. Jose 4-0, maybe he's just being able to find lines into some of the other anti-meta choices, right? So you're trying to counter the counters, perhaps, but if you go up against something strong and meta-defining like Dragapult EX, you're naturally going to struggle the way a lot of decks do. When you're going up against Badoo, your opponent is much more comfortable letting you do your game plan and do your slow evolution setup, because that's what Dragapult also wants to do. And they're just going to make that bet that once we're both established and we're both evolved up and we start swinging on each other, Dragapult is going to come out on top no matter what, especially because of the additional threats of spreading damage counters, taking multiple prizes. You're able to sort of offset even the strength of playing a single prize deck, which is what Conkeldurr is trying to lean into.
Now, this will definitely be the final confirmation that Owen needed in terms of, like, okay, if my opponent had a Jet Energy and chose to be conservative and not play it that previous turn, there's no reason not to grab it right now and just keep applying pressure and doing more things, right? He just played a Colorless Tenacity, is choosing to fail both aspects of the card choice. Therefore, my opponent is stuck. And Owen, honestly, with the time left in the round, Owen could just choose to play into bringing up this guy, bringing up, perhaps not that guy, but bring up this guy over and over, because Jose will not be able to move it whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm double checking the list here, looking for some other switching out, something.
There's none. It's
Turo,
3 Jet
Penny.
Energy. 3 Jet Energy, and that is it. Not even a Laria CX, so that's another big weakness of this deck, I feel like.
You're trying to go for almost a pure single prize deck here, no Pheasantipity, which some single prize decks will still dip into out of necessity to have some card draw, especially when you're trying to get over that final hurdle for your final, 2-ish prize cards.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that if you bring up this Brute Bonnet, because of the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule having that side effect of the opponent has it attached, cannot be affected by special conditions, Brute Bonnet cannot self-KO to free itself from the active lock, right? So
Right.
Jose's damage output right now is basically 10 until Owen decides if he chooses to bring this. Jose's damage output will be 20 damage in between turns. That's not enough to win this game even with the time left in the round.
And off and just goes for counter catcher.
Yeah, and we're going to see an even better play. We're going to just remove all the timbers from play. Phantom Dive on the active, 2 damage counters here, 2 damage counters here, and then once again we have a Fan Rotom base deck, not even a Conkeldurr deck. We have not seen Conkeldurr attack once this game, or this round.
An insane play. When you let Dragapult set up and manipulate the damage counters to their benefit, these board dismantling plays are exactly what's in store for you.
Yeah, that's exactly what Dusknoir does best when combined with Dragapult. We are seeing Dragapult at its best, and we are seeing all sorts of weaknesses exposed by the Conkeldurr deck. So if you're struggling against Conkeldurr, this is a pretty good showcase on what it's really missing and why Conkeldurr is a balanced deck, right? The combo is there, the synergy between the cards is there, but it's not as broken as the combination of Dusknoir and Dragapult EX. And I mean, Dusclops even, you don't even need Dusknoir at this point.
And this devastating play is coming off of the back of Owen, just keeping his wits about him and recognizing, yes, of course, my opponent doesn't have any jet energy, so I can have my pick of the litter here when it comes to what I want to attack, what I want to have in the active and item lock. Knowing 100% that your opponent's Pokemon is stranded in the active gives you free pass to take as much time as you like to establish your plays and wait for the perfect alignment of opportunity, abilities, attacks, damage counters for maximum devastation.
Yep. Buddy Puffin will give us another Timber, right? And the Dunsparce, but once again, we are just benching the Pokemon that attacks versus our opponent's fully set up board, basically. Like the big piece missing is a Duskull, but if Owen is able to find a Hawlucha, that 1 damage counter takes care of the single copy of Timber once again. And there's only 1 Night Stretcher in the deck, so there isn't even any real recovery left to bench 2 and have some hope of work handing into it the next turn. This is just really, really bad for Jose here.
Every possibility for this deck to go wrong seems to have shown itself during this set. It's really unfortunate to see folks. These oddball decks are always such a fan favorite. Great to see them succeed or to have, you know, a moment to shine in the tournament. But the lack of switching cards, like only access to 1 Night Stretcher, you can tell that this deck is built to immediately hit the ground running and not take its foot off the gas. If your opponent has any chance to slow you down, you can see where this deck really struggles to recover. Hilda finding enriching energy once more. And of course the Dunsparce. This is also the meat and potatoes of the deck, having this draw engine, this repeating draw engine, so that in the later stages of the game, your opponent can't Iono you down and try to find a way back into the game. You're able to constantly keep up that pressure and aggression. But from Jose's standpoint, you're drawing cards, but to what end? Yeah,
exactly, right? It looks very fancy. You're drawing 7 cards off of 1 supporter, right? Like Hilda all of a sudden becomes a better research because you're not getting rid of any resources. However, what do you do after, right? You need something to sustain that. And of course, Conkeldurr is a fantastic Pokemon, don't get me wrong. But it's just balanced versus the absolute raw power against Dragapult, against Gardevoir, right? And this is why, like, when a deck like this does so well at a tournament, there's a lot of spotlight and a lot of attention put into it, and for good reason, right? But it's also not a coincidence that this deck has not been a popular choice amongst many players up to this point, right? So there's a balance between a hidden gem, but also something that can generally compete against the top threats of the metagame. And I think being this weak to Ichipollen is just a really big nail in the coffin in terms of your deck's viability to be able to be successful in the long term.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people, right, that are also going to see this game and take it as a challenge. Oh, you know, Timber is my favorite Pokemon. I want to make it work. That's, you know, what the game is about for me. That's what I enjoy doing. And, you know, take some notes, folks. You can see, okay, if you're thinking about building this deck, you're going to want to try to maybe weave in a secondary attacker of some kind, have some more switching out, try to put that 4th jet energy in, maybe a Turo, to get these things out of the active spot. Maybe we're looking at Hilda, things of that nature. Excuse me, like Brock scouting, right, to get away around the item lock. These are just important deck building fundamentals when you're considering what you want to not just build, but what you want to bring to a tournament. Can I deal with this really popular line? Can I deal with this? Can I deal with Badu, right? A card that you know you're going to run into multiple times in that day.
Yeah, I mean, Badu, such a small Pokemon, such a big threat, right? That's, I think, a very good way to describe Badu. And now, Owen, this turn has the perfect combination, I think, already in his hand to be able to basically secure the game. He has Flying Entry Hawlucha to put 1 damage counter on either of these 2 Pokemon, and has Boss's Orders to bring the other Timber that's undamaged, and therefore seal this game. I think I saw the Hawlucha in his hand. Yeah, it's there. It's there. There's a Boss and there's a Hawlucha. I can't imagine him doing anything else. Of course, the Duskull is tempting. Of course, you could potentially want to do that. Seems like it's going to be the Duskull instead of the Hawlucha plus Boss. Did he play a supporter already? Maybe that's what I missed. Maybe he researched into all these resources.
I don't think the support. Sure. I don't believe the support has been used for turn, but I think that Owen, you got to keep your wits about you, right? You got to stay focused. Sometimes when you're so far ahead of your opponent, maybe you start to fall asleep a little bit. You know that your game's in the bag. Maybe you're thinking too much about the next round, but no, instead goes for Hilda.
Yeah, I mean, Owen must.
Is Owen trying to get fancy, pull off another 3 prize turn rather than just dismantling the Timbers instead?
I mean, that's impossible, right? He's not going to choose not to attack this turn. So, yeah, I mean, he must have something else in mind. He might not be in any rush. He might be generally just wanting the Conkeldurr to have its time of day right now. Taking down both Timbers is no longer an option, but Owen's still pretty much in the driver's seat.
Of course, and there's 4 minutes left in the round, so even if somehow Jose were able to put up a fight, you know, there's no way to even run this one back. Owen, it's just a matter of, are you going to win 1-0 or are you going to win 2-0?
Yeah, with less than 4 minutes on the clock, this game might conclude for either player. I mean, the Dusclops Curse Blast giving prizes to your opponent can be a factor sometimes. Like sometimes you're in the game just because your opponent has given you so many extra prizes by that Curse Blast as well. There's still the Blood Moon Ursaluna to factor in as well. So maybe Owen is accounting for that in some sort of way. Like if he took down both Timbers and then the Blood Moon Ursaluna comes back and knocks you out and your board isn't established enough, or you get Iono'd as well, maybe you don't have a great response. So maybe taking it slow is the way that Owen has figured out to like really maximize his win condition.
Yeah, even in states like this where you are so strong, you've got so many options in play, draw with the Dracloaks, potential combo threats with Duskull, you can slow the game down a little bit more with Badu. You know that your opponent's missing a Jet Energy. You still have to account for these outside chances. Is there any way I could fumble this game?
Yeah, I mean, Blood Moon Iono, but turns out Jose doesn't even play any Ionos in his deck. This deck apparently cannot afford it. It all relies on the Hilda. There's no other way to draw cards or find cards or anything. There's no disruption available, so I think that's going to put an end to this. Yeah.
Without any Iono, I think this just absolutely tells us, Pablo, that Jose is going to be ahead or perish. There is no in-between.
Yeah, I mean, is there a universe where you go Rare Candy Conkeldurr, and you go in with a Blood Moon, and therefore Owen can't get 2 prizes next turn? Is that maybe the way we go about this? Is that the option we have?
Dusknoir still in the prizes, so that potential to get that boost of damage to augment Phantom Dive is currently not available.
Yeah, so maybe there's maybe there's something in there. How could Owen have prepared for that? There's no Rare Candy for Owen at all. So yeah, there's no way to, I mean, there's no Dusknoir available because it's priced. Even if there was, there's no Rare Candy. So yeah, I don't think there would be a way to do that. But we're not seeing that second Rare Candy. That Timber will be available. The Dunsparce doesn't get discarded.
Yeah, and this is the other point. This is the other part of it, right? You leave the Dunsparce, so hard to say.
Yeah,
the Dunsparce in play, so that when your opponent is going to Iona you potentially, you still have that draw engine prepped and ready to go. But Conkeldurr, folks, gutsy swing. If it is affected by a special condition, it can attack for no energy. Has the Ancient Booster Capsule onto Brute Bonnet, so it can activate its ability to poison both active Pokemon.
Yep, we're going to grab Enriching Energy and the Dunsparce. We're going to shuffle up that deck. Now, Jose was looking at that other copy of Rare Candy as he was looking through his deck. So there is a universe where if he manages to find that combination and takes a knockout here, maybe Owen cannot counteract that situation. I'm seeing the Rare Candy in hand. Does have another Dunsparce to potentially draw with. Missing that Conkeldurr though. The Binding Mochi will help him do extra damage. We see the poison. We're not gonna even attempt it. So all Owen needs now is a Dragapult to take down the Conkeldurr, take down the Timber, and win this game.
So draws for turn. The timer is ticking down. Owen is going to be turn. It will finish out his turn, and then Jose will get one more turn before the set is over.
There's no copy of Dragapult actually in the hand right now, and I'm only seeing Iono as draws. So there is a universe where Owen could whiff off of this Iono 2-2. I mean, does have double Dracloak. I did see a couple nice stretchers in there. There's an Ultra Ball, there's a Dragapult as well. So I would say odds are pretty in favor of Owen hitting this. But it's, oh, I think he has a research. Never mind. I think he just researches into whatever he's missing.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just about the, you know, finding a Dragapult. You just got to find Night Stretcher or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many options available to him right now. We're going to research. And, I mean, we're going to research for 7, and we have access to potentially 4 more cards. So that's 11. I can't imagine there's many more cards left here. And we see the Night Stretcher already in the hand. We're going to see the Dragapult. And we're going to see this game close out. I really wish we could have seen Jose use that leftover the Dunsparce in order to try to find that Conkeldurr and remove that possibility from Owen, because that generally could have given him a very real chance of closing out this game.
But Owen takes it down. Dragapult, Dusknoir, incredibly potent. Even in a matchup like this, where you are seemingly at a natural advantage because of Badoo, you still have to play it well, you still have to execute, and Owen showed us what kinds of combinations this deck is capable of. You can play aggressively with early Phantom Dives, you can sit back behind Badoo, try to set up these really fancy combination plays, and because you are controlling where and how many prize cards you're taking, it also really throws off your opponent's ability to respond effectively. Looking at the replay now, Owen, once again, bringing up Dragapult, taking out the solo Timber, and this was the thing that put Jose on the back foot. Couldn't get enough Timbers in play. They were all unsafe over and over again. Owen constantly had the response with Dusclops, Curse Blast plus Phantom Dive, taking down every single Timber, every Girder. Nothing could stick. Jose only pulled off one Conkeldurr attack this entire game, and Blood Moon Ursaluna took some prize cards besides.
Yeah, that Blood Moon Ursaluna might have surprised Owen towards the end. Definitely surprised me, but it wasn't enough to close things down. And then Games 2 started off a lot better, but that clutch third Jet Energy prize for Jose. I mean, generally, it could have given Jose one more turn of aggression, but with Owen's plethora of availability for ghosting effects, with so many counter catchers and boss's orders, eventually something would have gotten stuck in the active through that Itchy Pollen and no way to move it, and that's where Owen was able to slowly but surely get energy into play, get his Dragapults, get his Duskull and Dusclops going, and despite prizing quite horribly, he was able to run away with this game after researching into the final piece that he needed, which was that Night Stretcher for game.
And the Neo Upper Energy, right, that had been attached so early in the game, and often this is a big risk that Dragapult players take sometimes, to attach a Neo Upper Energy to a Dracloak or something, because they don't want to discard it to a research or something, or they want to use their attachment for turn just to remain efficient, but Jose was never even able to punish that play. Yeah,
and I mean, that Neo Upper, as you mentioned, I feel like that's definitely the card that has brought Dragapult over the edge, right, into like broken territory. Neo Upper Energy, when it first came out, was almost like laughed at because it wasn't an era of V-Star Pokemon and Stage 2 Pokemon that were viable back then, were like Gardevoir and Charizard and Pidgeot, right? None of which wanted to play that energy because they had self-built energy acceleration. And even when Sparkling Crystal came out, that was the preferred choice for Dragapult, but it seems like Neopper has continually shown why it's the best A-Spec for Dragapult. And with Hilda, it got even better as well. Now Dragapult can freely play Jamming Tower and still have access to its A-Spec. So Dragapult just showing why it's one of the top contenders in the metagame, but has that asterisk in terms of going up against Gardevoir, it keeps falling short. Conkeldurr's not the Pokemon to stop Dragapult, nor Gardevoir, but Dragapult just feels like it's so close to being able to do it.
And that is why we now can hear a few words from Owen to hear his thoughts on the metagame, his thoughts on the tournament, and his build of Dragapult. So take a look, folks.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Watch us on here, and I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Owen Dalgard, the winner of the last round, Dragapult Master himself. Owen, how are we feeling after that last round?
I'm feeling great. That matchup is pretty favored, so I was happy to see that he was playing the Conkeldurr deck, but I'm just glad to close it out and that I drew pretty well, and I was able to 2-0 him in the set.
Oh, I feel that. It definitely favored. Very, very dominating. I think while I was watching that match, all I could think of was Timber as you chop down and dismantle his board. I think the only time he actually got to attack with the Conkeldurr was, what, 49 minutes in, like in the last attack, right? Tell us about the strategy there.
Yeah, so the main strategy in this matchup, because they don't play the TM Evolution card, is to just keep them under item lock until I can wipe out all of their Timbers so they can't get a big attack in. So I'm just itching like the whole game, setting up my Dusclops, setting up my Dragapult, and then once I can take a big like multi-Timber and like whatever evolutions he has knockout, then I go for it, and I can like disrupt sometimes too, and that's usually enough to win the game.
Oh, exactly. We saw you win back-to-back. A lot of the times just absolutely board wiping the field, just removing everything that can possibly attack. And but you've been doing a lot of work, right? Those 10 damage definitely help out. And of course, the Duskulls, right? Tell us about your deck now. You know, you're playing Dragapult, but I don't think you're playing any rare candies, right? So tell us why we decided with the slower Dragapult version.
Yeah, so I'm playing a more standard version of the Dragapult deck, similar to Justin Neudorf's second place list from the World Championships. My deck is pretty standard. I have like a pretty normal Dust line and Pult line, but I just wanted to play more consistency. And the reason I didn't like to play Rare Candy was because in the mirror match, when they Badoo you can't use the Rare Candy. So it felt like not a very good card for that matchup, and I wanted to leave more space to have more even and slightly favored matchups across the field.
Love it, love it. Great explanation. With that, Owen, I believe we have the next round almost ready. Anyone you want to shout out before I do let you go?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to shout out my parents, my dad and my mom. Shout out my sister. Shout out Safari Zone, Dan and Angel from Safari. I really appreciate you guys. And then shout out to Polaris, all my students, Cohen, Eric, Miles. There's so many, but thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy you're here too, Owen. With that, again, congratulations. Best of luck with the rest of the round. The rest of Pittsburgh. I'm sure we're going to see more from you. With that, we're going to have a quick break, but we're going to be back with more Pokemon action. Don't go anywhere.